Welcome into the pump fake, where we believe in two high safeties. Jarrett Bailey, JP Acosta. Welcome to the Week 3 preview show. It's always good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm not sure about everybody else because we are all bemoaning the death of NFL offenses, but we're doing good over here. We're doing great.
I'm sure that you're doing great. Yeah, I know that this is like the second coming of Jesus for you. You are very happy.
This is exactly what I've been talking about for the last 2 years. I feel like that Gambit meme is like, how long I've been waiting for this? I'm gonna make a name for myself here. I've been saying NFL teams are gonna get back to running the football against two high shells, but seeing everybody kind of collapse within themselves about this, including trying to ban two high safeties, which is the funniest thing of all time, or wanting wider splits like college football, which is the second funniest thing of all time.
Yeah.
Seeing it all is just very hilarious to me when the answer is very serious.
Yeah, and I think that it's just really laughable anytime that defenses seem to get a little bit of an edge on offenses. The first reaction from a lot of people is, how can we make this easier for the offense? Rather than just be like, you know what, it's good to have some parity on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, football is cyclical, but I also think Peyton Manning said this, but football is a chess match. You are constantly moves, counter moves, plans. You have an idea for what you want to do and what you want to be. And defensively, they are ahead of the game right now. They are forcing the issue on offenses. The answer there is not to bend the rules or bend the rules to make defense harder. No, it is the offense's turn to adapt now. We forced defenses to adapt when everybody was running wide zone and play action off of it and running just deep overs and crushing cover 3. Like, what was that, 7 years ago now? 6 years ago?
Whenever there was like the big explosion of like guys who were, I think it was like 3 5,000 yard passers in the same season. So yeah, between like 7-10 years ago.
Yeah, like we forced defenses to adapt from that, and now they did. And now we're like, it's the defense's problem? No. It's not their turn to adapt. It's the offense's.
Amen. And we'll talk about every single game today. And there's going to be some defensive chess matches, and we're going to touch on that as well. We can start a little bit with the Thursday night matchup. This is mostly going to be about, the Sunday, Monday games, considering this is going to come out a few hours before Thursday night kickoff. But Jets, Patriots, over-under is 38.5. I think this is going to be a pretty good defensive matchup between, the Patriots defense that's looked pretty solid thus far. 1-1 to the surprise of a lot of people. This is a team that didn't look great in the preseason, but defensively they've been pretty stout thus far against Cincinnati and Seattle. And then the Jets, kind of laid an egg week 1 against the 49ers. And it took a lot of the Titans kind of shooting themselves in the foot for the Jets to overcome that. Jets are a weird team, but they can kind of, if they're 2-1 after 3 weeks, that's a good spot for them to be in. I think this is definitely more important for the Jets and the Patriots, considering the expectations that both of these teams have. But yeah, it should be fun to see Aaron Rodgers and these two good defenses under the lights.
I'm so excited for this game, and I'm excited because I think the Patriots are a very fun team that knows what they are. They have an identity. They're going to run the piss out of the football. They're going to ask Jacoby Brissett not to be Superman. They're going to ask him to make a couple plays. He was hooping against Seattle. He was really hooping. I think he did some really cool stuff out of structure in terms of pocket evasion, pressure evasion. But that defense is amazing. Keon White really starting to come into his own. Losing Juwan Bentley sucks, but Marte Mapu, Raekwon McMillan are going to have to step up there. And they're going up against the Jets offense that I still think they're trying to find their answers and trying to find a consistency with the offense, because while Aaron Rodgers has been fine, he has not been MVP Aaron Rodgers. So it'll be fun to see that, and it'll be fun to see this good run blocking unit of the offensive line for the Patriots go against a mean as hell Jets defensive front.
And it's also cool because Ramondre Stevenson isn't going down on first contact. I think he leads the NFL right now in yards after contact. They have a really nice 1-2 punch with he and Gibson for the Patriots. Sometimes metrics can be a little bit misleading. It's not the entire story. But right now the Jets are 10th in the NFL in EPA per play. The Patriots are 14th. So like that surprised me looking at that this morning. So yeah, this could be a quietly fun game. I think that it'll be more competitive than some are saying. The spread is 6.5, so could be fun. Looking forward to seeing what that brings tonight. We can move on to the Sunday slate though. We'll start with I think that this game is going to be your church. Houston traveling to Minnesota. Brian Flores against CJ Stroud. That is going to be a very fun game to watch. Vikings are 2-0 coming off a win against the 49ers. Sam Darnold is winning back the hearts of a lot of people. The 97-yard bomb to Justin Jefferson. The Texans starting by winning their first 2 games as well. Going to be a fun one. I'm very much looking forward to seeing this and how Brian Flores goes about attacking the Texans offense. They've got a bunch of like low-key guys that might not be like big superstar names, but have been balling throughout the first 2 weeks. I think Andrew Van Ginkel is going to be like the dude of the year just for everybody who enjoys just what he's been doing. He's been great. I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah, good game for the 1 o'clock window.
I'm really excited about this one, and I'm excited to see how Brian Flores uses CJ Stroud's pre-snap processing against him. I think that's something that the Bears really wanted to do, and they tried to get to that, especially late in that game when it kind of turned into a slog, because as good as the Texans defense played against Chicago, the offense after the first half really slowed down. They kind of petered out a little bit, had settled for a lot of long field goals. So I wonder how Brian Flores is going to mix up the coverages, but also flood those quick intermediate windows with defenders. Blake Cashman lost his mind.
Bro.
Played fantastic. Patrick Jones II was also awesome against the 49ers, and now they're going against a similar scheme in Bobby Slowick and the Texans. So I'm very excited to see that chess matchup between Flores and Slowick. And then I'm really curious to see if these Texans edge rushers can get any pressure against Christian Darrisaw, who is really, really good, and Brian O'Neill, who is a really quality right tackle. Because I think that's somewhere that Sam Darnold really hasn't been tested yet. He's not faced a lot of pressure. I mean, Dexter Lawrence kind of ate the interior offensive line's lunch in week 1, but Dexter Lawrence does that to everybody. Sure. So I want to see how he responds to pressure and how Kevin O'Connell can draw up cracks in this defense, because we've seen with an offensive line that is worth their salt or actually competent, we have seen the Texans' pass defense can be attacked downfield. Anthony Richardson completed 9 passes for 212 yards in week 1. So I want to see if they continue to attack vertically against this defense, but this is going to be a really fun one.
Yeah, I mean, we brought up Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman. Harrison Smith also playing really well for Minnesota in the middle. So this is going to be – yeah, he's playing like he's in his mid-20s. So it's amazing that he's still playing at this level at his age. So kudos to Minnesota. I do think that Houston wins, but I'm very much looking forward to that game of the 1 o'clock. But that will be on one of the TVs in the Daily household. Yeah, that's a TV game. Philadelphia, New Orleans, the Saints. Okay, you know what? I was wrong about the Saints, at least thus far. I know it's still early and everything, but when you put up 40 points in consecutive games, I don't care who you play, that is damn impressive. And Derek Carr looks like he's found his mojo. Rashid Shaheed, consecutive games with long touchdown receptions. Alvin Kamara, 4 scores against Dallas. Fun Saints offense. When you look at Derek Carr off play action, the Saints last year were the worst team in the NFL off play action. They just didn't do it. Derek Carr right now leads the NFL in completions off play action. So it's clear that the Clint Kubiak effect has taken full storm in New Orleans. That game will take place in New Orleans. And if the Saints start 3-0, man, and they beat Dallas and Philadelphia in consecutive weeks, we got to start having a real conversation about these New Orleans Saints being like a legitimate, like, okay, they might be able to make a splash in the playoffs, much less just getting there.
So I wrote about the Saints offense for Establish the Fun, which you should go read at SB Nation. What they're doing is they have brought San Francisco's basketball on grass to New Orleans with their base personnel. They live out of base personnel. I don't think they've had many snaps out of 11. They are based in 12, 21, but how they get to it is the coolest thing. You know, they're going to have Rashid Shaheed in the backfield and Alvin Kamara on the outside. Taysom Hill is going to be everywhere.
Yeah,
I think what Clint Kubiak has done is he's maximized these dual threat players in a way that Pete Carmichael never really could. And like, oh, you have a guy in Kamara who is a great runner and receiver. You don't have to silo those things. You have Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, who are both fantastic receivers, but Olave's really been blocking his ass off to start this season. Rashid Shaheed has found so many different uses outside of just being a vertical threat. And then whatever you want to think about Taysom Hill, like that is Taysom Hill's thing. He doesn't even have a position listed on the Saints roster. He is just Taysom Hill. Mm-hmm. So getting to that and also keeping Derek Carr in play action. He was really good in play action with the Raiders when he was good, but now you're actually using it more and you're creating easy pockets for him and to take some of the pressure off that offensive line that is still really struggled. But in this game, I'm really curious if they start to run or base out of 11 personnel because the Eagles' run defense is horrendous when teams are in 11 personnel. So far, it's only been 2 games. They lead the NFL in yards per game allowed on the ground when teams are running in 11 personnel at 155.5 yards a game.
Oof.
They are 3rd in first down rate allowed, and they are 1st in yards per carry allowed. That is not going to survive, especially with a Vic Fangio defense that wants to play light boxes. If you can't stop the run when you're in nickel or if you're in your light box, you can basically kiss that defense goodbye. And it's frustrating to watch because you have 3 first-round picks on that defensive line, a lot of money invested in Josh Sweat and Bryce Huff. You can't get pressure, and you can't stop the run. What that was supposed to be the strength of this Eagles defense, that defensive line. And through 2 games, they have not been it.
And, on Monday, it felt like they had that game in the bag. And watching what was basically a home broadcast on ESPN for the Eagles. And they dominated like a good 50 minutes of that game. And then Kirk Cousins had the easiest game-winning drive I've ever seen, where it was, all right, completion over the middle to Kyle Pitts, completion outside to Darnell Mooney, completion to Drake London, incompletion to Ray McLeod in the end zone. Might have been a pass interference. Doesn't matter. Drake London catches a touchdown and puts Darius Slay in a figure-8 trying to get back to him to win the game. So this Eagles defense, I think, has real problems. And I think the Eagles might have real problems, especially if they fall to 1-2. Then I think the alarms are going to sound very early for Philadelphia. Even though, let's say that, Baltimore beats Dallas. We'll talk about that game here shortly. Both teams will still be 1-2, but that is, it feels like they would be at very different spots despite having a similar record. That's a big issue if the Eagles drop another one.
It would feel a little bit like crisis time.
Yeah.
And it'd be different if the Eagles lost this game and beat the Falcons because you feel a lot better about yourselves when you're 2-1 instead of 1-2. But we can't go back and change that, So you go into this 1-2, you haven't even gotten into division play, and you've already lost 2 games to NFC opponents. 2 games that are going to come back to bite you, especially if especially if the Falcons are any good. They will own the tiebreaker over you. So they desperately need to turn this defense and the offense, which has been very weird, around. They throw the ball a lot. They throw the ball far too much. You see what's up there? Run the ball. Run the ball. That's why you have 2 dudes in the backfield that squat 8,000 pounds. Run the ball. So I want to see if the Eagles can figure it out defensively.
We'll stick in this division and go to Baltimore and Dallas. The Ravens staring 0-3 in the face, blowing another big lead in the 4th quarter. Devontae Adams went off for the Raiders, and Baltimore couldn't run the ball. They picked it up a little bit in the second half, but I think Derrick Henry had 5 yards on 7 carries in the first half. That's just not going to get the job done, mate. So Baltimore now staring down the barrel of the gun, going to Dallas. The Cowboys obviously fell apart and gave up 44 to New Orleans after defeating Cleveland 33-17 in week 1. Even then with Dallas, though, they look good offensively in the first half. Cleveland kind of clamped down in the second half, and then they couldn't really get anything going against New Orleans. What are your thoughts on both sides going into this? I think that with Baltimore, I've had my thoughts on the Ravens coming into this year. I think that the offensive line didn't get talked about enough, as much turnover as it has. And they got bullied a little bit in week 1 against Kansas City. Lamar made plays with his legs, But Max Crosby was everywhere in week 2, and now you're playing Micah Parsons on the other side. Like they just keep running into elite defenders that can take advantage of bad offensive lines. That's my biggest worry with them going into this.
So I'm worried about the offensive line and just specifically the right side of the offensive line. They haven't found a consistent combination that works, even though, you're starting Daniel Falele at right guard and Patrick Mekari at right tackle. Even though Mekari might have been better at guard and you have Roger Rosengarten, who's a rookie at right tackle, you might as well just go with that combination and let the rookie play.
Yeah.
But I also kind of think this game leans itself towards a Baltimore, the way the Baltimore is built. I think the game leans itself to a Baltimore style of game offensively. And that's just because the Cowboys are soft up front on defense. They got ran the hell over by the Saints. And the problem with the Cowboys is this is the same problem that it's been for the last 2 to 3 years. They cannot stop the run. They are too light up front. That Cowboys team is built to get you into 3rd and long. That's how they built their defense. I think this game leans itself towards the Ravens if the Ravens want it to be. I think they should run the hell out of the football with Derrick Henry, just like Cowboys Saints ran the hell out of the football with Alvin Kamara. And just use play action because you can go against these linebackers. You can make this plan work because they still don't trust those linebackers, and the defensive tackles are too light in the ass to really stop the run. So I'm curious about that, but I'm so excited about the Cowboys offense against the Ravens defense because the Cowboys find themselves in the same spot as they were last year with no good running back, one good receiver consistently, and now you're forcing everything on Dak. And if that game gets out of hand, Dak is going to try and lead them back, of course, which is what a quarterback should do, but he's going to turn the ball over. And then it becomes, why can't Dak win big games when the defense is getting run over every single play? So I'm curious to see if the Ravens can force their will in the run game against the Cowboys, or if the Cowboys are actually going to kind of show up and stop the run.
Yeah, and I wrote about this a little bit today. Like, even if Dallas loses this game, obviously they would love to start off 2-1, but even if they lose, it's not nearly as big an alarm for them just because of Philadelphia's inadequacies and the fact that the Giants and Commanders are the Giants and Commanders. They can get right a lot better than Baltimore can. If you're 0-3, and then what's next in the schedule? Oh, you play Josh Allen and the Bills. Good luck. I think that they're going to play much more so with their hair on fire, but controlled as much as they can against Dallas, because I think there's more pressure there. If you're 0-3 in the AFC, that is a hard hole to dig yourself out of.
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard for them to dig themselves out, especially because of the division they play in.
That too.
But I think it just do a lot for this team just to get a win on the board.
Yeah.
Especially going to Jerry World and playing the Cowboys. It would mean a lot for this team just to get one on the board, just playing their style of football.
I think it would be somewhat of a gut punch to Dallas because go ahead of last week, they were 16-0 in their last 16 home games, and to lose 2 in a row, I mean, that'd be a rough start for Dallas.
It'd be a rough start for Dallas, and it would also it'd be the same way that you lost to the Saints.
Yeah.
Same way you lost to the Packers.
Yep.
And we're starting to notice a trend here. It's the same way you lost to the 49ers, where you can't stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't stop the run, it's going to be a lot harder to win the game.
That's the 425 game. I assume it's going to be Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady on the call, considering they're the unofficial voice of the Dallas Cowboys for television. So that'll be a good one. I'm looking forward to watching that. Giants Browns, we can touch on that quickly. I think that's going to be one of the more boring games of the weekend. That is over under 38.5. I could probably bet under 28.5 and still cash out on it. That's going to be a rough game offensively for both sides. I think there would be a nice Dexter Lawrence game. I think Deshaun Watson's going to make a hilarious throw that gets picked off and sets the Giants up at the Browns 15, but somehow they won't get a touchdown out of it because they're the Giants. And Daniel Jones might do something hilarious. Daniel Jones versus Deshaun Watson. Maybe walk with me here. I don't want to say the worst quarterback battle of the last 10 years, but in terms of week 1 starting quarterbacks that had high expectations, pound for pound, maybe the worst battle of quarterbacks when you factor in expectations in recent memory.
I think the worst battle of quarterbacks when you factor in contract.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's the pivot here. These two guys got paid a lot of money, and even though the Browns won last week, that offense didn't play good. They were
No, it did not.
2-14 on third down.
Jesus, love.
Still not a good game for them. So I think they're going up there. It's really a stoppable force against a movable object when they play the Giants defense that outside of Dexter Lawrence
doesn't have a lot there.
They're still trying to figure it out. But I actually think Malik Neighbors is kind of fun, and this would be his first legitimate test in the NFL going up against Denzel Ward.
He had like 18 targets last week or something like that.
Yes, and they should make it more. Give him 28 targets. This is really a high school football team where there's like one good offensive player who's going to go to like a big P5 school, and you just give him the ball every single play. This is Derrick Henry at Yulee High School. Give Elite Neighbors the ball every single time.
I would even make this comparison. Your former Jacksonville Jaguar receiver Zay Jones, and he was at East Carolina. I think he had like 160 catches his final year. Do that. Just fade him. He's good.
Get the ball in any way possible. Jet sweeps, screens, get him downfield. Use his speed to really open stuff up.
Okay, let him throw it. Why not? See what he can do. Why
run
not?
The triple option. I'm so serious. Run the triple. Daniel can run.
He can.
Carry back there in Neighbors. Run the triple.
I don't know if I sign up for that in terms of watching it, but it might work.
I would watch the hell.
I'm sure you would.
Trying to run the triple option.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I don't obviously like as a Steelers fan, I'm gonna have a rooting interest for the Giants in this game. But that is going to be I don't know who's on the call for that game, but bless them and hopefully they get at least some form of entertainment out of it. The game is in Cleveland. Steelers Chargers.
Ooh, I'm excited for this one.
There's going to be a defensive heavy game. There might be a weird final score. I think Adam Rank predicted like 13-5 or something like that. Like
this is going to be real Hoopers football right here.
Yeah. I'll say this about the Steelers, being the resident Steelers fan of the program. Offensively, the touchdowns haven't necessarily come in bunches, but there is a clear just improvement from the last 2 years where they've been able to establish long drives. They've been able to push the ball downfield. It's just a lot of it has been either they come up, they can't finish. They didn't finish against Atlanta, but they had drives of 12 plays, 10 plays, 10 plays, 13 plays. It's just they all resulted in field goals. Against Denver, they scored on their second drive off a long drive. They had an 11-play drive that got negated and had to punt because on a 51-yard rope that Justin Fields threw to George Pickens, Broderick Jones had one of his 3 penalties on that drive, and they had to send the ball back to Denver. But there's a clear difference with the Steelers this year. We talked about the Saints and their usage of play action. Steelers have been a very play action heavy offense thus far, which has been good for Justin Fields. Arthur Smith talked about it a little bit today where like Justin is, developing more of a pocket presence. Like his first instinct isn't just to take off and run. Like he's gotten better, which is good to see. Steelers are 1.5 favorites. I'm very up in the air on this game. I think that it is going to be a very low scoring game. And this is going to be the two defense that are allowing the fewest points in the NFL right now are the Chargers and the Steelers. So it's going to be a fun one, and it's going to be a game for the sickos.
So I actually picked the Chargers in this one, and the reason I picked the Chargers is one, because again, with all the talk about how too high offenses are ruining passing games, and like everybody's crying about like throwing the ball has never been like lower. It's so overthrowing the ball. Jim Harbaugh came to the NFL at the right time. We needed one man to bring us back, and he wears khakis and football cleats during games, baby. I love their run game. I love the physicality that he has brought to both sides of the ball. I think the Steelers defense can attack this Chargers offensive line through stunts and design games. Against the Raiders, they were able to be effective in that department. But because the Panthers don't have anybody credible rushing the passer now that Derrick Brown is out, I think that's an area that the Steelers defense can win. I'm very excited to see Joe Alt against TJ Watt. Joe Alt through 2 games is the rookie of the year. I don't care if you can put up whatever skill player you want. Joe Alt is the rookie of the year. I don't want to hear anything else about it. Then Zach Frazier, also second. We are returning back to what we once were. The reason I'm also picking the Chargers is while I think the Steelers' offense has looked a little better, their success rate running the ball has still been a little low.
Sure.
Right now, they have a 30.4% rushing success rate, which is 29th in the NFL.
Yeah.
Only in front of the Denver Broncos, Carolina Panthers, and somehow the Raiders have a 17.1 success.
They can't run the ball to save their lives, man.
In the run game. Also, the Steelers are 29th in success rate throwing the ball. But the funniest thing is they are, I think, 15th in EPA. Yeah, they're 15th in EPA, which means they are getting the explosives.
Yep.
Getting all the big plays, but you still worry about you can hit the home run. If you're not hitting the home run, you are striking out. You need to be able to create those.
Which is the vast opposite of what the Steelers have been in recent years, where it's been, all right, few yards at a time. The offense isn't explosive. Now it's, all right, 3rd and 11. Oh, Justin Fields just completed, a 24-yard pass to George Pickens. All right, let's keep this thing moving.
Yeah, and now I wonder what this defense or what this offensive line is going to look like against a defense with legitimate pass rushers.
Haven't had to really face that yet.
You are going up against, while I don't think he is the same player that he was, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I am very worried about whoever's playing right tackle, whether it be Troy Fautanu or whether it be Broderick Jones.
It'll be Troy Fautanu. The Steelers named Fautanu the starter at right.
Okay, so this is going to be a real welcome to the NFL game for Fautanu going up against Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack. I wonder how Fields is going to operate against a team that is going to take away all the verticality of that offense.
I think that's where we'll see some Pat Freiermuth stuff. We're starting to see him
to force. Is he going to be able to eat his vegetables in the passing game? You're going to have to take the 4-yard plays. You're going to have to take the Pat Freiermuth underneath route. Is that going to be something that he's able to do? Or because of how unsuccessful the run game has been, and also how unexplosive the run game has been. That has been something that I thought would help with Justin Fields being a runner, but their EPA per run is also 30th in the NFL. They cannot be explosive or successful on the ground. So if this game turns into a rely on Justin Fields boom explosive plays against a team that limits explosives like the Chargers through 2 games, I don't really know how this offense is going to succeed.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to start integrating a little bit more like the read option quarterback run stuff as much as they can in this game, just because we haven't seen a ton of that. Any sort of run that we've seen Fields have, it's been mostly off of, all right, 1 read not there, 2 read not there. All right, I'm just going to take off. Did much more against Atlanta. I think he had 14 rush attempts against the Falcons. He didn't have nearly as many against Denver. But this is one that people are going to be paying attention to. Both teams are 2-0. I would say unexpectedly 2-0 at this point, where there weren't too many believers in the Steelers. There were more believers in the Chargers than the Steelers, but I don't think that people thought the Chargers would start off this well. Battle of unbeatens. Who would have thought that we were here with the Steelers and Chargers going into week 3? Another unbeaten, playing at home, coming off or playing the team that the Steelers just beat, Tampa Bay hosting Denver. The Buccaneers, it's a fun team, man. Baker Mayfield is, I think he's right now tied for the NFL lead in passing touchdowns with Derek Carr with 5, who would exactly how we thought it would be through 2 weeks.
Outcome through the first.
It's great. He is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Tampa Bay, man, I didn't think they'd be bad. I thought they would take a little bit of a step back after Dave Canales left, but Liam Cohen, hey, tip of the cap to you, my friend. This offense looks really good, and the defense has been a pleasant surprise in how they've played.
What they have done offensively is continue what Dave Canales brought to Tampa and continue to maximize Mayfield's strengths as a passer. Baker Mayfield has a really strong arm, but is not confident over the middle of the field. So they don't throw routes over the middle of the field. They're just hammering corner routes and out routes and go routes to Mike Evans.
They ran a play where they had Chris Godwin somehow get behind everybody on the sideline, almost like a wheel type situation. I have to go back and watch the L22 of it, but it was an incredible play designed by Liam Cohen to get nobody within breathing distance of Chris Godwin down the left sideline.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a fully healthy Chris Godwin, who was one of my favorite players in the league
Shout out Penn State.
He is a kick-ass blocker at receiver. And then you have Mike Evans, who is, again, one of the best receivers in football. So now you've just created an infrastructure for Mayfield to consistently succeed. Their run game still needs some work. Still needs some work, but I don't think it's going to matter against this Broncos team, because how are they going to move the ball?
Yeah.
This is probably the roughest 3 games a rookie quarterback could have when it comes to playing in the modern NFL, against Mike McDonald, against the Steelers defense, and now you have to go up against Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers. Good luck to that young man. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball. It's going to be really hard.
I saw a lot of people, myself included, just watching the Broncos and Bo Nix's offense this past Sunday, but also watching Sean Payton kind of be left behind a little bit. I think that this offense has become very stale, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of innovation as there was, 10 years ago with Payton's offense. I mean, you and I talked on plenty of shows over the offseason about, man, I don't think Bo Nix is going to be a good NFL quarterback. I just don't see that working. And so far, like, not rooting against him, anything like that. It's just, yeah, it's pretty true.
I just don't think this is a good fit for him. If you drafted a guy who was going to throw the deep routes, but throw a whole bunch of RPOs and short game, you should build the offense out of that right now. Yeah. They don't throw RPOs. They are forcing him to be a drop back passer, which is something he cannot do right now. He is uncomfortable in the pocket. He gets happy feet, and he's just missing. He doesn't look confident in this offense. And I wouldn't be confident in the offense either. Devon Vele is getting a lot of snaps. They have no explosiveness in this offense. If you're going to have a guy who wants to throw the deep ball, you should probably play Marvin Mims a lot more. Troy Franklin should probably get a lot more snaps. But it feels like this offense is going in the opposite direction of what the quarterback is good at. So now you're just left with a guy who's out there trying to process whatever Pittsburgh's throwing at him, and it obviously is going to look good.
We are in a position where it's very possible that both the Saints and Buccaneers are 3-0 after 3 games, and suddenly the NFC South is actually like fun, which I don't think any of us expected coming into this year.
Yeah, I did not expect the NFC South to be fun. I thought it was going to be another chaos year, but look at where we are now. Look at us.
Look at us. Who would have thought? Battle of young quarterbacks in Indianapolis. Caleb Williams and the Bears traveling to take on the Colts and Anthony Richardson. We've seen the tale of 2 Richardsons in the first 2 weeks of the season, where week 1 against Houston, we saw one of the most impressive off-platform throws I've ever seen in my life. The touchdown pass to Alec Pierce. It's the 3rd longest throw in next-gen stats history. It was an incredible throw by Richardson. And then you go into a game, granted it's on the road, and I get that, but you're playing a Green Bay Packers team who you knew exactly what they were going to do. They weren't going to trust Malik Willis to throw the ball 25 times. They were going to pound the hell out of that rock. They had, 250 rushing yards in the first half. They just ran all over the Colts, and they had no answer for them defensively. They only held them to 16 points. But then Richardson on the other side throws an ugly interception. He doesn't look all that confident. They can't move the ball against Green Bay's defense. And now they are 0-2 staring down the barrel. The Bears are 1-1 coming off a loss to Houston on Sunday Night Football, where Caleb Williams didn't look all that great. He threw 2 interceptions, one of which I'll just tip my cap to Derek Stingley, was good coverage. The second of which, triple coverage, Kamari Lassiter had a gift fall into his hands. That wasn't great. I think it's 2 guys that are learning on the fly, just trying to get comfortable. Anthony Richardson only played for a month last year before going down. Caleb Williams finding out real quick this ain't the Pac-12. This is going to be a kind of a do or die for both sides. If the Colts start 0-3, that's a hard hole to climb out of. The Bears, if they can start 2-1, hey, that's a good start. So I'm looking forward to this one.
What has happened to the Colts defense?
Dude, you and I talked a lot going into the season. You love the Colts defense.
I genuinely have no idea what happened to them up front. They have given up 200 yards on the ground in the first 2 games of the season.
That's bad.
They have given up through 2 games.
By the way, DeForest Buckner hurt as well, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to be gone for a while.
He's in IR. The Colts have given up 237 yards a game on the ground through 2 weeks. That is unsustainable football.
Bro, they gave up over 200 in the first half against Green Bay.
You're not going to win any games in the NFL when you give up 230 yards on the ground. I am so confused by this team because they seem to be the antithesis of what we all thought they would be. Offensively, they are throwing the ball far too much.
A lot.
I'm not saying that because I don't think Anthony Richardson is a good passer. I think he can be. But I think they are so scared of using him as a runner, and they shouldn't be scared of using him. That is part of the Anthony Richardson experience.
Yeah.
And they don't give the ball to Jonathan Taylor. They should straight up be what the Philadelphia Eagles were in 2022, where Jalen Hurts isn't throwing the ball more than 30 times a game.
Yeah.
You don't have to drop back 30 times a game. You just run the ball. They are so good running the ball up front. The offensive line has gotten so good. Bernhard Raimann has turned into like an incredible left tackle. Shout out to Tony Sperano Jr. for developing that offensive line. But you should run the ball. And it's going to be tough to run the ball on this Bears defense who wants to stop the run. But on the other side, I don't know if the Bears can run the ball.
Yeah.
That offensive line is really, really bad. And it's taking an effect on Caleb Williams, whose pocket presence was good. And I still think it is good. He is doing a lot of work trying to change protections, adjustments. But he is also learning that NFL windows close fast. Playing quarterback in the NFL is really freaking hard right now. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I don't know who's going to win, but I don't expect a lot of points.
Yeah, the over-under for this is 43.5. So maybe bet the under here, folks. We'll keep it going here. Green Bay, Tennessee, the Malik Willis Bowl in Tennessee. I think Matt LaFleur should win Coach of the Year based off his performance in Week 2 alone. I think that there aren't 5 head coaches in the league better than Matt LaFleur right now. The fact that, again, the Colts knew exactly what the Packers were going to do, and they couldn't stop them, just speaks to how well coached this team is. The defense looks good. Still a little bit of kinks to work out, but Xavier McKinney already looks like Money West Penn. He's got an interception in each of the team's first 2 games thus far. Tennessee, we got Brian Callahan already on the field saying, "What the F are you doing, Will Levis?" That's a tire fire waiting to happen if they go 0-3, man.
I really don't think this game is going to have a lot of points. And it depends on if the Packers bring Jordan Love back. Love practiced today. He was padded. He was moving around. So I don't know what his status is going to be for Sunday, but it's a little easier. And like you said, Matt LaFleur should win Coach of the Year for that performance. There is now no excuse for any offensive play caller to hide behind the fact that you have a backup quarterback. They had a backup quarterback and ran for 270 yards.
Crazy.
The offensive line was still going through a lot of work. It's still a young offensive line, and they ran for 270 yards. There is no excuse anymore. I don't think the Tennessee Titans defensive line is the same as the Colts defensive line. I think they are much better. They are much angrier. They are much meaner. But the benefit of playing the Titans is you're always going to be in the game because Will Levis is going to keep you in the game. The funniest thing and the worst thing about Will Levis from the turnover that he had was that it was the exact same turnover that he made.
Exact same. It just happened to go backwards instead of forwards.
Like, you aren't learning from your mistakes. Like, he had the rainbow throw to Ridley that was really good, but you can't keep playing with that volatility because that is losing them games. You lost 24-17 again because you lost possession because he turned the ball over again. It's really bad. And I think the offensive line hasn't helped him out a lot. It's still young, but they give up a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And
Will Levis under pressure is a completely different quarterback. So if the Bears can get pressure like they normally – or not the Bears. If the Packers can get pressure up front, which I think they can, that game turns into a slugfest, especially if Love can't play.
I have a Will Levis comp, and if you've seen the either Harley Quinn or the show Kite Man, I think that Will Levis is Kite Man, where he's constantly trying to do the most just to show that he is capable of being good, but he always ends up just colossally messing it up. And I imagine, like, every time that Kite Man goes in a Kite Man mode, it is Kite Man, hell yeah. I imagine Will Levis puts on his helmet and goes, Will Levis, hell yeah. And just tries to do the most and just makes the worst errors you can think of at quarterback.
Will Levis is Gen Z Jay Cutler.
Oh, is that? Yeah, kind of. Okay, I'll walk with you on this.
He is such a strong arm, confident quarterback that when it's all working, you're like, hell yeah. Jay Cutler, hell yeah. Will Levis, I see the vision. But then Jay Cutler is going to do the stupidest thing you've ever seen. Will Levis does the stupidest things you ever see. I also think they're both very reckless with their own bodies.
Sure.
Like, they're incredibly reckless. Like, Will Levis is going to try and run people over or like jump into the end zone. So I think he's a little Gen Z Jay Cutler, but you cannot keep playing with that volatility, especially, like I said, when you're losing one-score games because you can't hold on to the ball. Also, a side note, their special teams is really bad. How do you have a block punt twice in the first 2 games?
It's not good, man. That's a team that I know a lot of people were kind of iffy on. I said, yeah, probably 6-11. You know, I think that I just don't know if I believe in the quarterback. But if Brian Callahan can get anything out of them, then that's a good year. If they can figure out one way or the other, they're going to figure out if Will Levis is their guy or not. Right now, it certainly doesn't look like he is. Panthers, Raiders. Not great. I think the Raiders will win this rather handily. I think that Carolina, I talked about this with Jason Fitz on Tuesday. There have been 2 winless teams in the history of the NFL, or I guess 3. 2 0-16 teams in the history of the NFL, the Lions and the Browns in 2008 and 2016. I think that the Panthers are worse than both of them.
It's tough because I do think the QB change might get them a win. And if they're going to get them a win, it's got to be against the Raiders.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be against the Raiders. To be fair, that offensive line has played a lot better this year.
Yeah.
Offensive line has been a lot better.
They paid Robert Hunt a bunch of money.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard actually kind of rocks. It's just everything about the passing game has been so bad. Everything about the defense has been so bad. The Chargers played a C-plus game and scored 26 points and did not look pressured at all.
Yeah.
Like, Justin Herbert threw 2 picks, and that game was not close. So I'm going to go with the Raiders, but I would not be surprised if the Raiders screwed this up.
Yeah, if General Redbeard can come in and inspire any sort of confidence in the offense, because it's not like they have a complete lack of talent at receiver. You know, Deontay Johnson's a good receiver. Even Adam Thielen at 34 years old, I think, is a fine, like, second or third guy. They draft Xavier Legette. Like, they've got guys that are capable of making plays. It's just Bryce Young was not putting them in situations to succeed. And whoever you want to blame for that, whether it's the organization, which it's mostly probably the organization, whether you want to blame just the fact that sometimes skills from college just don't transfer to the NFL when you're a 5'9", 180-pound quarterback. And we're seeing the end results of that right now. A lot of that also could be, you know, they had a lot of cooks in the kitchen last year with Frank Reich and Josh McCown and the entire staff going through coaching change. It's a lot of stuff, and I get that, but there's been a lot of ineptitude on the Panthers' part, and I just don't think that Bryce Young is built to be a long-term franchise quarterback that you can go to the playoffs consistently with.
I think the biggest worry for me with Bryce Young, watching him through 2 games, was that he regressed.
Yeah.
He got worse in terms of mechanics, in terms of timing. Anything that wasn't 1, 2, 3, boom, ball out, the mechanics fell apart. And that's really bad because you're already putting yourself behind the 8 ball with being tiny and also not having the strongest arm or being able to create with athleticism like guys like Russ or Kyler. So you're already putting yourself behind the 8 ball. You have to have great mechanics. And I just don't think this situation is the best for him. Honestly, there aren't many offenses that I think would be great for him. Like, there's only 2, and one of them is the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's the obvious one there.
Offense that would really help him out. The other is the Commanders, and that's just because I think a high schooler can run that offense. So it's tough. It's tough for him, and a lot of people share the blame.
Well, you don't think that the Rams should trade Matthew Stafford and a draft pick to get Bryce Young?
I would want a drug test for Les Snead immediately.
That's the good stuff. Miami's traveling to Seattle. Looks like Skylar Thompson will get the start. Seattle 4.5-point favorites. I feel like that's too low. I think that Seattle is going to win this rather convincingly. I think Skylar Thompson, even as a backup standard, not a very good quarterback. And if you can't get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle consistently, it takes the Dolphins pretty much out of it. I think they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit because obviously Achian is proven to be very good, but I think this is a Seattle game that should be a relatively easy win.
I don't know if they'll be able to run the ball. Seattle's defense is really good through the first 2 games. Granted, of course, they played Bo Nix in his first career game,
right?
And the Patriots that while they can run the ball well, the passing offense leaves a little to be desired. But Mike McDonald has these guys playing extremely fast. They're throwing so many different looks up front at teams. They're always going to get a free runner. Somebody's coming home free. I think their edge defenders have gotten so good. Shout out to Chris Partridge, who was the outside linebackers coach for the Seahawks. Boye Mafe has been really good to start the year. Derek Hall has started to be more consistent. Draymond Jones, who moved from defensive tackle to the edge this year, has played really well in the run game. I don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball consistently with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. And then Dino's just playing at an incredible level. Like just
pooping
to watch. He is pooping.
We'll move on from that because I think that that's a relatively easy result to predict with Tua on the shelf for we'll see. Hopefully he's okay. I'm not going to be one of these people who sits here and tells him to retire. If that's the decision that he comes to, then okay. If he's cleared to play still and he wants to keep doing it, then all right, that's your choice. But hopefully first and foremost, hopefully he's okay. Detroit and Arizona. I think this has game of the week potential. This is going to be a very stupidly fun game between 2 offenses that kick ass. I'm very excited for this.
I'm so excited about this game. Kyler Murray is locked in.
MVP Kyler.
He is locked in. And one of the things that I was so excited about watching the Cardinals offense from the offseason is their ability to be in base personnel in 12 and 13 and still be able to be explosive. And that was on full display. Granted, it was against the Rams. They have me out there playing defensive line. But he looked so good commanding that offense. Their ability to be explosive out of that out of the heavy defense, out of the heavier fronts and heavier personnel is going to be the key to their explosiveness on offense. They're able to run the ball really well. I'm really excited to see them go up against this Detroit defense that they have Aiden Hutchinson. And Aiden Hutchinson can wreck a game. Offensively, the Lions have been weird. Ben Johnson's play calling has been a little weird to start this season. It's like he forgets that he has the best offensive line in football. And I think that's what I think he called a fine game on Sunday, but there were moments where, what are you doing? Just run the ball. You don't have to. I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball at all in this game. As good as the Cardinals are, they still have one of the worst run defenses in football.
Yeah.
So if they want to turn this into a ball control game and run the ball 30 times, they absolutely can and should. Like, this is not a team that you don't want to play Arizona's game where Arizona wants you to be in spread. They want you to throw the ball a lot because they get their best guys on the field. Run the ball at them. So I'm really excited for this game. I think it's going to be the game of the week, like you said. And I want to see if this Cardinals team can bow up against a team that is physically much bigger than them.
Yeah, and you look at the Cardinals have faced the Bills in week 1. They looked great in the first half, moved the ball downfield consistently. But Greg Rousseau had 3 sacks in that game. Von Miller had a sack last week. Kyler was still, obviously made the viral play where he's dodging Rams defenders. I don't know. I think it was Jarrett Verse and Braden Fisk. He might have thrown Michael Hoyt out of the way, whoever they lined up on the defensive line to throw a bullet. But yeah, going up against Aiden Hutchinson, going up against that really solid defensive line with DJ Reader in the middle as well. Like I'm excited to see what Arizona can kind of throw at them from an offensive standpoint. And yeah, you mentioned it, man. Like the Buccaneers-Lions game is one of, like, from a box score perspective, you would think that the Lions won by 30. Jared Goff threw the ball 55 times. against Tampa Bay.
That's far too much.
What are we doing?
It's
crazy. So I think that very much agree with you when you've got David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield who, I mean, that's what you lived and died off last year, man. Like, yeah, they were able to throw the ball a lot, but it was because of the fact that they had one of the best ground attacks in football, and they had practically 2 1,000-yard rushers. So I think that we'll see them get back to that against Arizona, but very excited for that. Speaking of the Rams, they host the 49ers.
Oh, Lord.
This might be, when we talk about sound the alarms, hey, the Rams could be 0-3, and it looks like they very well might be. They are dealing with a lot of injuries. Cooper Kupp's out. Puka Nakua's out. This feels very 2022-ish for the Los Angeles Rams, where they lost all their good players and they got no depth.
This feels like when a wrestler comes out and they're heavily bandaged and Braun Strowman is their opponent and they immediately get slammed. Like the Rams have no more IR spots.
That's crazy.
3, and you're out of IR spots. I don't know what's happened, but this is also a sign and a knock on Les needs team building. You don't have depth anywhere. Like now, Nakua and Kupp are both hurt. Who are you throwing the ball to?
Tutu Atwell.
Atwell and Jordan Whittington. Like half of the starters on the offensive line are hurt. Avila is on IR. Jonah Jackson is on IR. Kevin Dotson playing through an injury. Joe Noteboom is out. They're getting back Alaric Jackson, who was left tackle starter last year, but he was suspended for the first 4 games. So they're getting him back, or the first 2 games. So they're getting him back this week, which should be a help. But you have no healthy starters on offense. Defensively, oh man, where do I start?
You don't believe in Michael Hoyt, JP?
They have no depth. They have no big dudes. They built this entire defensive line out of undersized 3 techniques and wonder why they get ran into the dirt.
Yeah.
And that is a bad formula against a 49ers team that without Debo and without CMC, I expect them to run the heck out of the football. Like just full on ball control it. I don't think this is going to be a Brock Purdy throw the ball a whole bunch type of game. So if they can just run the ball really well, and Jordan Mason has been really good running the ball for them, if they can just run the ball on this team, that game should be over relatively quickly.
Yeah, and this is where I think we've started to see like all these, maybe they should trade Matthew Stafford, really just get ahead of this like whole rebuild thing. Try to do you think there's a real possibility that happens? I personally do not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't think the Rams are going to rebuild until that core group retires.
I agree.
Until Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford decide to hang it up, they will continue to push all their chips into the table, which is smart because that's what you have those guys for. When Stafford is kept upright, he is still a very good
quarterback. Damn good, man.
But you just don't have the guys. They don't have the depth this year.
They don't. I'm going to pull up the Rams schedule real quick because I am curious about where this thing could go if they start off 0-3, which is looking like a real possibility. So after this, they go to Chicago to play the Bears. Winnable game, but even then, you're still hurt. That's a good Bears defense. Then they host the Packers. That's no give me. You host the Raiders. Okay, maybe. Then you host the Vikings. And then you travel to Seattle. They've got some winnable games if they start getting some of these guys back. But again, going to an 0-3 hole, that's it's no easy thing to dig out of, as we've mentioned a few times. Kansas City, Atlanta, Sunday night game. I think the Chiefs win. There's not too much about this game that intrigues me. Maybe the battle at tackle or between whoever the Chiefs start at tackle and Matt Judon. That gives me a little bit of interest. They pulled Kingsley in the last game against Cincinnati because he kept just getting bullied by Trey Hendrickson.
I would say that's Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson almost won them that game.
Yeah.
Judon plays over the right side predominantly, so he's going to see a lot of Jawan Taylor. I think that is going to be the matchup. I'm actually a little bit intrigued by this game, largely because with Pacheco out, how are they going to be productive on the ground?
Yeah,
which has been a very quiet, like the Chiefs have been really good on the ground over the last few years, which has kind of supplanted their inability to throw the ball downfield or be explosive. So
big Carson Steele game.
I wonder how they're going to generate production in the run game without their starter. I also am a little curious on if Kirk is actually moving, because in the second half of the Eagles game, he looked a little more confident in his leg. There were, outside of the 2-minute drive aside, which he looked really good in terms of hitting the edges of the defense, which he really couldn't. There was a play, I think it was a first down on like third down, where he gets swiped at by a pass rusher, steps up. It's that kind of movement, that quick movement that I don't think he was confident doing in week 1. But if he can do that, that's going to help so much against this defense.
I wonder if with Kirk, like week 1, he had a little bit of like Ricky Bobby syndrome, where he was like afraid. I'm afraid I'm going to be on fire again if I move around too much. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the Achilles. I think he shook a little bit of that off against Philadelphia. So if he is able to move around some, operate in the pocket, operate off play action, which we saw them do obviously more than they did in week 1, because they did it 0 times in week 1. If they can turn Kirk, back into what he's really good at, which is play action Kirk, I'm looking forward to seeing how they can take advantage of this. But this is still a very good Chiefs defense that still fields a lot of really good guys, especially in the front 7. They've gotten really good production out of Chamari Connor in that nickel spot. So that's given them the ability to, keep Trent McDuffie on the outside when they go nickel if they want to, but they still, will play Trent at the nickel spot. Jalen Watson's been pretty good. Obviously we know what the Chiefs are going to be. We know how good they are. But part of me thinks it would be very fun to see Atlanta win. And then we have 3-0 Bucks, 3-0 Saints, 2-1 Falcons. And then Carolina, who's this close to getting relegated down to the SEC. If they don't start putting things together. But I think Kansas City wins.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Kansas City, but I would not be surprised if the game is more competitive, because, again, I still am kind of waiting for the explosiveness from the Chiefs passing game. We still are trying to get back.
We saw one last week with Rashee Rice getting I think it was like a 47-yarder.
Then, like, the lid was kind of put on, and I wonder if that's because Trey Hendrickson just ruined that football game.
Just 8.
So without a Trey Hendrickson caliber pass rusher, I mean, Matt Judon can take over this game, but without Trey Hendrickson, can this offense be a little more explosive?
Right. Now to the Jarrett JP Bowl. The Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Buffalo to play Josh Allen and the Bills. Somehow, some way, I've become, next to you, the biggest Trevor Lawrence defender in NFL media. I wrote about it a little bit, and I saw that you had tweeted about it. I think it's very much time to have the Doug Peterson conversation.
Yeah, this is over. It is done. It is beyond done. This team is they lack vision or foundation offensively. I've been saying going into this game, the Bills should win by a smooth 20, 30 points.
Wow.
This should not. The only reason this game is close is because the Jaguars defense keeps it close.
That's the thing, man. Like, Ryan Nielsen has been a very good hire. They haven't allowed more than 20 points throughout the first 2 games. They've been good.
That defense has been awesome. But Tyson Campbell's on IR. Darnell Savage did not play last week. Andre Cisco got hurt. That's 3 of your 4 starters in the secondary. You're running out of bodies. And at some point, the offense has to help out. And the offense is not helping. They are actively playing defense against this team winning games. Press Taylor and Doug Peterson are actively working against what this offense wanted to be. They wanted to attack downfield and be vertical. They can't, because they went into this season thinking they fixed one thing with the offensive line, but completely fix that offensive line. Spoiler alert, it didn't. That offensive line is still bad. And now the play sequencing is bad. The out and up on the 2-yard line. What are you doing? You don't have the offensive line to run an out and up on the 2-yard line. If Trevor Lawrence isn't hit immediately, that's a touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. is open, but you can't get him the ball. And that's the biggest frustration, is that this team is still talented offensively. But the offensive coordinator and play caller is holding them back.
What if this ends up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise for Jacksonville? Because let's say that you're right and this thing is done. It's cooked. Maybe JP Acosta, there is a very bright light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is in the shape of Ben Johnson becoming the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach next year. What would that look like? Would that make you happy, JP?
So I still don't know if Ben Johnson wants to be a head coach.
I know. You've been very adamant that you don't think Ben Johnson wants to be a head coach, but I'll point to this. Ben Johnson has said he's not just going to take any job. It's definitely dependent on team, quarterback, yada yada yada. If I'm Ben Johnson, though, Trevor Lawrence.
If he doesn't take this job with a surefire quarterback in hand, he does not want to.
He's just not going to take one.
Not going to take one. I actually think Aaron Glenn would be a good head coaching hire. I think largely because he is going to retain Ryan Nielsen because they play the same style of defense. And then I think the offense that he could bring in terms of hiring guys from the Detroit tree without taking Ben Johnson, you'll get some of those ideas.
Maybe he brings like Mark Brunell or Antoine Randall with him, someone from that
Mark Brunell will be an amazing story.
That would be great.
Coordinator. I would love that so much. Outside of that, I mean, you're getting into maybe Clint Kubiak, but
that's gonna be
Clint Kubiak. Maybe Bobby Slowick, but again, it might be a little too early for Bobby Slowick. But they need some new ideas in this offense because it is very clearly not working. And if this team bottoms out, you're playing. You have the Texans, you have the Bills, you have the Patriots defense in London, you have the Bears defense in London. If this team bottoms out, they will probably be coming back to the States without a head coach.
Wouldn't that be something? I guess Ryan Nielsen would then assume interim head coach duties.
Interim, and that would kind of be like his audition.
Yeah.
It feels like a half measure, but I would honestly not be surprised if they promoted Nielsen to head coach. Because that's what Shad Khan has done. Doug Marrone got promoted to head coach. They didn't go outside of the office and hire him.
Mm-hmm.
Above everything else, Trent Baalke got to go.
Oh, for sure.
He's got to go. There have already been reports and rumors of Baalke and Doug Peterson being at odds and headbutting each other and Trent Baalke being too involved with the coaching. He's got to go. He was the GM with Urban Meyer. How does he still have a job? Like, this is not – you got to clean house, except for Ryan Nielsen. Love Ryan Nielsen.
Yeah, keep Ryan Nielsen and everything else can go out. From the Bills side of this, they were looked at as a team that was – I mean, some of them, like, there was some extreme takes where it was like, yeah, they're going to go 7-10, they're going to suck. I think there was others that's like, yeah, they might take a little bit of a step back, be a wild card team. Right now, though, man, like, I don't think it's hyperbole to say they've won the AFC East. I think that right now they're 2-0. The only other viable threat right now would be the Jets, and I'm not trusting that the Jets are going to win the division. I think the Jets would be a playoff team, and they could be a playoff team, but I think that if you go 3-0 as the Bills and Miami doesn't have a quarterback right now, I don't think, like, as fun as the Patriots have looked in the first 2 weeks, I still think that's a 6-win team. It's the Bills and the Jets race, and I know who I'm choosing in that race. So, offensively, love what Joe Brady's done. It's a lot of James Cook. It's a lot of run it in your mouth and not ask Josh Allen to throw it 50 times a game. They can still go to the well of Josh Allen being awesome. He made a couple really just Josh Allen throws against Miami, specifically the one to Ty Johnson where he beat Jalen Ramsey to get inside the 5. Chef's kiss. I love that they have gone this route. And you know what? I'll give you credit because you told me something similar about the Greg Roman offense in Los Angeles. And I was like, well, why would you want to throw it less with Justin Herbert? Maybe this is why. So I can admit when I'm wrong about things, and I was kind of wrong about that. So I love what Joe Brady's done. I love that. Credit to Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich as well, because they're without Matt Milano. They're without Taron Johnson. They're going to be without Terrell Bernard. They are getting credible snaps from Jamarcus Ingram, who's been around the league for a little bit. At nickel, he had 2 picks last week. What's that?
Cam Lewis
as well, who played his ass off. Balin Spector. Like, they are getting play out of guys that have no business playing this well, and they've done it. This is like the 3rd straight year they've had to do it because of injuries. This is a very, very well-coached team. Obviously, anytime you got Josh Allen under center, your offense has a chance. I think Buffalo is perfectly fine. And I think Josh is playing much more free, knowing that he's not going to have to force the ball to anybody to keep them happy. This is a very much receiver by committee type team. And I love what Buffalo's look like thus far.
I think I've said this before about this Bills team. They might not have the same talent offensively, talent level, but they're much more complementary. They're going to be built off of yak. They're going to be physical. They're going to try and hit you hard in the run game, which is exactly what you want to do in the NFL now. I think this game is going to lend itself more to Josh Allen's legs and scrambles. The Jaguars play a lot of man coverage, and I would not be surprised if they played a lot of man coverage. You, as good as I think, as complimentary as the Bills receivers are, somebody's got to get a bucket. And I think the Jaguars defense is going to make that bet of somebody's got to go get a bucket.
Yeah.
But if they play as much two-man as they have recently, and that's what Ryan Nielsen does, this is going to be a Josh Allen scramble game, especially in the passing offense. Defensively, I expect Evan Ingram to be back. I expect Christian Kirk to be healthy. So expect a whole lot of Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk against the
underneath stuff
without Taron Johnson, without Terrell Bernard. But if the Bills are going to win this game, Von Miller, Greg Rousseau, this has to be their takeover game. I think the regression from Anton Harrison has been dumbfounding to start the season. I've been extremely concerned, but Ed Oliver is going to have to play a huge game. I think the Jaguars, especially weak at the center guard, specifically right guard. Brandon Scherf looks old, but they're going to have to win in the pass rush.
The Steelers can trade Broderick Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can have
absolutely not.
Okay, well,
let's nip that in the bud. No, I'm good. If the problem with Broderick Jones was development, I don't think he's going to develop with Phil Rosher as an offensive line coach.
If it makes you feel better, the Steelers have done a crap job at developing him too, because they've constantly flipped him from right to left to right. It's just been a mess.
Yeah, start off at left tackle, then go to right tackle, then go back to left tackle, then go back to right tackle. Exactly what you want to do.
Very dumb. Final game of the week, I think we've covered every other game. Washington taking on the Bengals. This is as much of a get-right game for the Bengals as you can get. Third straight year, they started off 0-2, by the way, the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is completely familiar territory with them, where they just come out of the gates and fall on their face and then get back up and outrace everybody. I think the Bengals win this. I think it should be a pretty comfortable win, where they just kind of throw it on the table and say, we're the Cincinnati goddamn Bengals, and we're going to start playing like it.
Look, I made a lot of Commanders fans mad when I said this. Their offense is dishonorable football.
I did see you in class were both talking about that on Twitter.
Play a real offense. All you do is throw screens. You just throw screens and RPOs. Get that high school offense out of my NFL. And the crazy thing is, Jaden Daniels can throw the ball downfield. But I also think their numbers, EPA wise, success rate wise, I think it's a little inflated because you played the Giants.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Bucs game came in garbage time after the Bucs scored 40 points. But yeah, man, if he is healthy and plays in this game, expect a lot of the long ball. Expect a lot of the deep ball, because now I think they got into it with Kansas City. Joe Burrow was more willing to throw the ball deep, and the Commanders' secondary is still not good. So expect a lot of verticality, and then Trey Hendrickson still might take over this football game.
Very possible. That's week 3. We've done it. We have done it. Go and check out JP's stuff on SB Nation. Establish the fun. What else do you have going on?
I got a couple stories coming out, specifically talking about Mel Kiper Jr. Wind the Band, cover 2. But just see where I'm going, see what I'm doing. Going to be writing, going to be tweeting a lot about college football, NFL, especially tonight. If you want, I wrote a section of Established Fun about Keon White, who is playing tonight for the Patriots. He is a badass defensive player. He just shows up on the field, no wrist tape, no gloves. He just wears long sleeves. He shows up like he just got off of construction, and he whoops your ass. So watch out for Keon White. Read about what I have to say about him. But see where I'm going, see what I'm doing. Follow me at Acosta32_JP on social media.
Follow me at JBaileyNFL on Twitter. What have I done recently? Did a quick little thing on the Bills and how everybody said that they would be bad, but offensively and defensively, EPA per play wise, they have been very good through 2 games. And like I said, I did a little write-up on what could be next for the Jaguars. If this is it with Doug Peterson, that's on the Sporting News as well. So go and read all of that. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to it as a podcast, wherever you get your podcast, leave a review. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be back to recap week 3, and we'll be back with Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer as well to talk about what the hell happened with Bryce Young, what's going to happen next. So stick around. Thanks so much for tuning in.